Godzilla is a cinematic and cultural icon, known very well for his stomping around of Tokyo City with reckless abandon. And with anyone that finds success in our world, there's always people or clones who will go out of their way to try and replicate some of that success. This should come as no surprise that North Korea has made their very own version of Godzilla, a ridiculously bad ripoff. However, the most interesting part of this story isn't the ripoff itself, but the absolutely insane illegal things that North Korea had to do to make this happen. Hello! Welcome to Brain Spill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and we have to go back to 1966 in North Korea, the totally free and democratic country that has absolutely no human rights issues whatsoever, and anyone that says so is just making up a bunch of baloney. At the time, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-il had been a huge fan of films for pretty much most of his life, who would soon become a director at the Motion Picture and Arts Division for the country. What's really interesting about this is that even though North Korea is very well known to be quite secluded and tries to block out any sort of foreign interference, including media, this was different for Kim Jong-il, as he had a huge collection of films and movies to watch whatever he wanted to, and that included a lot of foreign films, so he certainly had a good idea as to what his competition was making. Which is pretty strange, knowing that pretty much everyone else in the country are not allowed to even watch any of these films, and he can just watch whatever he wants. He can stick on Die Hard, and there it is. Kim Jong-il would take up his directing role very seriously, and being involved with many North Korean film projects, most of which of course were for propaganda purposes. But this was a lot of power at his disposal, especially as the populace were slowly but surely able to start affording TV sets to be able to show these creations. This is all well for the North Korean government, as their citizens were getting access to TVs, so they had another means to spread their propaganda. However, there was a bit of a sticking point, and the issue here was that when Kim Jong-il compared the films and media that North Korea was creating and comparing that with any other place around the world, he found that there was a distinct lack of life in any North Korean productions, and this was something that was really lacking, and in order to bring his films up to the par he expected, he wanted more out of his actors. Yes, of course it's the actors' fault. I mean, it's not like it's the way that the whole government's set up. No, nothing like that. Those actors just need to get better. Thinking about it, if I was one of those actors, I probably wouldn't really be caring about my acting ability. I would probably be doing the base minimum just to make sure I could get fed at the end of the day. I mean, they've got some bigger concerns than trying to make films good, I guess. Sorta sounds like a them problem more than anything else. Kim Jong-il had grand visions for his directorship and sought out more passion in his work. He couldn't just allow Western movies and media to be shown to his people, as not only would this highlight the stark differences in quality and culture, but perhaps may lead to nihilism towards the regime. And that is something which, of course, the country couldn't be having that now, could they? So, if they were going to bring quality movie making to the North Korean people, it had to be through the eyes of North Korean cinema. So, what did they do to change things? Well, if they kept making films the way they had done before, then they were just going to get the same results again and again and again. Therefore, they looked outwards to see if they could find help and support from people who were perhaps a little bit more experienced in the field to bring them in and, well, improve the filmmaking in the country. But what does one do? Do you find a director who is very experienced and give them lots of money, or do you try and show them that North Korean cinema is the future? No, you basically kidnap someone. No, I don't mean hire someone, I mean straight up kidnap them. Yes, this sounds absolutely ridiculous, almost like the plot of some cartoon show. But what North Korea decided to do was, instead of go out of their way to kidnap the director straight away, they decided to try and kidnap an esteemed actor to try and bait a director to come out to the country. So they decided to aim for an actress named eun-hee, who was abducted in Hong Kong after being told she was being propositioned for a film position. She was taken and arrived in North Korea. Yes, although they were seeking new talent for their North Korean film productions, she was primarily used as bait for a bigger fish they wanted to capture, a South Korean film director called Shin Sang-ok. After the actress was kidnapped by the North Korean government, Shin went out of his way to try and find her, and after 6 months was eventually captured in Hong Kong again by North Korean operatives. Again. And the reason that he actually went out to go and find her was the actress they had kidnapped was his wife. So yeah, there was probably a little bit more reason that they did that in the first place. Shin was kidnapped and taken to North Korea, and as you might imagine with anyone that's been taken to North Korea, they probably don't have the best accommodation. However, Shin arrived to the lap of luxury. I mean, if they were going to get a director to see Kim Jong-il's vision of North Korean cinema, this was the man to do it, and they needed to make sure that he was on their side. This was all concocted so that Shin would make movies for Kim Jong-il, which is crazy that these lengths were taken to achieve this. And as any normal person would probably do initially, he refused to cooperate and was ultimately jailed. Shin apparently tried on a couple of occasions to escape and was unable to get away, eventually relenting to the fact that if they wanted any hope of actually leaving, they had to bite the bullet and make the films. I hated communism, but I had to pretend to be devoted to it to escape from this barren republic. It was lunacy. Kim Jong-il was the executive producer for the films that Shin was going to direct. However, he did give him quite a lot of creative control and didn't have too much input into the films he was creating, which I guess was quite nice. I mean, he could have been there breathing down his neck the entire time, telling him how North Korea is amazing, but if he really wanted his vision to work, he had to give this guy the freedom he needed to make cinema gold. And as well as that, Shin's budget to make these movies was, well, basically infinite. He was given pretty much as much money as he needed to bring these films to life, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, if you're being given the lap of luxury, you're given complete freedom and control, and you can spend as much money as you want. What's not to love? Except the fact that you're in North Korea and you can't leave. So yeah, he could basically spend whatever the hell he wanted. As a director, this must have been a very conflicting way of life. You are treated like royalty, have pretty much unlimited funds, and would have the creative freedom to make any films you wanted. However, creative freedom was the only type of freedom that was permitted. There is no hiding the fact that he is not here by choice, and this must have been a forever prevalent thought during his time in the country. He would direct a total of 7 films for the glorious regime, and with Choi being the leading lady in these movies, the final movie being the blatant Godzilla ripoff called Pulgasari. Ooh, scary title. So yeah, it's one thing to revolutionise the cinema in a country and to one-up yourself, but it's another thing to try and produce a piece of media or film that is actually up to the standard that other people around the world would appreciate, and that is specifically what Kim asked Shin to do. He wanted a movie that would impress Westerners. Hence the idea to effectively take a property that was already successful and try and slap the North Korean logo on it. So they selected Godzilla, and even though Kim had a hatred for the Japanese people, he realised that their cinematography and film prowess was next to none. What's even more crazy about all of this is that they actually went a step further and even managed to get the special effects team and the actor who played Godzilla in the actual Godzilla film. This, on the face of it, sounds really good. However, they appeared to have been duped by boarding a plane bound for China, only to wind up in North Korea of all places. The man who played Godzilla commented on his experience with this totally original film concept and said the following: "There were thousands dying in North Korea, but at the same time here comes Kim Jong-il, and his idea of advancing the regime's purposes is to kidnap 2 South Korean filmmakers, trick some Japanese film crew members, drown them all in gifts and luxury, to play with rubber monster suits and make a Godzilla ripoff. The movie's premise starts from a monster born of nuclear energy, made from an elderly blacksmith starving in a prison cell, who makes him out of rice and his daughter's blood. Bit of a weird concept, but okay. I have no idea what they were smoking at the time, but I bet you that the prison had no reference to North Korea whatsoever. Anyway, the monster is hungry for iron and decides to take down the evil emperor who has been hoarding it for so long, effectively being a good guy. Again, something which likely has absolutely nothing to do with North Korea whatsoever. So yeah, the film was made, it was produced, and it was a hit. And Kim Jong-il thought it was an absolute masterpiece. So much of a masterpiece, in fact, that his gamble had paid off. By going out of this ridiculously long way to get people and effectively kidnap them, they'd managed to make a film which, comparably, was at the heights of Hollywood. Or so in their eyes it was. But for Shin, this was all part of his masterstroke plan to escape. Him and his wife were given the opportunity to travel to various film events and conferences, but bided their time until they travelled to Vienna in 1986, where they were due to speak to someone who might be able to finance a new film project. The couple, while there, managed to convince the bodyguards to leave them alone after an interview they did, which allegedly was for the film. So instead, they escaped, and they managed to get out of the hotel they were booked into, escape through the streets of Vienna, and get to the US Embassy. Apparently the bodyguards gave chase, but they were unable to catch up before they made their grand escape. This sounds like a movie in itself, but somehow they managed to weather the perfect storm and get out in one piece. Perhaps if they were showered with enough gifts and the luxury lifestyle to convince them that North Korea was an amazing place, they could build up enough trust to actually be allowed to go on a trip like this, which was the perfect opportunity to escape the regime. Shin and his wife lived in the US for a number of years before returning to South Korea. However, North Korea's statement issued on this event had a rather different spin, saying that they had not been abducted and instead voluntarily chose to defect to North Korea, and then left and embezzled a large amount of money from the country. So yes, I guess we'll never truly know the truth of what happened there. I mean, we can have our guesses, but I guess we'll never know. However, the one thing I am sure of is that by this whole thing happening, we managed to get a terrible Godzilla Ripoff movie, which is the absolute pinnacle of North Korean cinema. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. Oh, guys, it's pretty simple. North Korea just needs to get a Netflix deal so they can bring their cinema masterpiece to the masses. And I, for one, would love to watch this strange lizard movie of a dinosaur that eats iron and... you can't make this shit up, can you? I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.